The ship was ugly. That was the first thing the Galactic Concorde noticed when it appeared from the dark edge of space. It was made of metal and fire, leaking radiation from engines that burned chemicals like some ancient machine. The 12 species of the Concorde watched from their beautiful station and laughed quietly among themselves. Whatever was inside that ship, it was clearly primitive. Ambassador Teo stood at the front of the human delegation as the airlock opened. He was a tall man with calm eyes and a patient smile. Behind him stood 20 others, including Dr. Han-Ah, their chief scientist, and Wu Jin, their security officer. They wore simple gray uniforms. They carried no visible weapons. They looked, to alien eyes, completely harmless. The Concorde had sent their finest representatives to greet these newcomers. There was Velix, a tall insectoid creature from the Helix Collective, with 6 arms and eyes that saw in every direction. There was Morn, a floating gas being from the drift clouds, who communicated through color changes in his misty body. And there was Elder Keth, an ancient reptilian creature who had lived for 600 years and had seen many species rise and fall. Tejo stepped forward and did something that made every alien uncomfortable. He looked directly into their eyes. He did not look away. He did not lower his head. And then he smiled, showing his teeth. Velix took a step backward. In the Helix Collective, showing teeth was a death threat. But this human seemed ... happy. "We come in peace," Tejo said. His voice was warm and steady. "Earth sends its greetings to the Galactic Concorde. We hope to learn from you and share what we know." Elder Keth studied the humans carefully. They were strange creatures. They stood on 2 legs and had soft skin with no scales or armor. They had small, flat teeth that seemed useless for fighting. Their eyes faced forward like hunters, but their bodies looked weak. Keth had seen 1,000 species. These ones would not survive long in the galaxy. "You are welcome," Keth said slowly. "We will teach you the ways of civilized space." The first days were full of meetings and tours. The humans asked many questions. They wanted to see everything. They touched things they should not touch. They laughed loudly at strange moments. And always, they looked directly at whoever was speaking to them. But it was Dr. Han-Ah who caused the first real shock. She had asked to visit the Concorde's medical center. The doctors there were proud of their technology. They could heal almost any wound, cure almost any disease. They expected the human to be amazed. Instead, Hana pulled up her sleeve and showed them a long scar on her arm. "I got this when I was 12, she said casually. "Fell off my bicycle. My body healed it by itself." The doctor stared. "Your body healed itself?" "Yes, human bodies do that. We heal from most wounds naturally. Bones grow back together. Skin closes over cuts. It takes time, but we recover." One doctor, a small creature with many tentacles, pulled up Hana's medical file on his screen. His tentacles began to shake. "This cannot be correct," he whispered. "Your species? You consume poison for pleasure?" Hana laughed. "Oh, you mean alcohol? And spicy food?" "Yes, we enjoy those. Capsaicin is a defensive chemical used by plants to prevent being eaten." "It tastes good on noodles," Hana said simply. The medical report spread through the Concorde like fire. Humans were persistent predators. On their home world, they had hunted by following animals for days without rest, until their prey collapsed from exhaustion. Their bodies could survive extreme heat and extreme cold. They could lose limbs and continue fighting. They formed emotional bonds with anything, even machines, even their food, even creatures that tried to kill them. Velix read the report 3 times. Then he called an emergency meeting with Elder Keth. "They are dangerous," Velix said, his 6 arms moving nervously. We should send them away. Keth made a sound like grinding stones. It was laughter. Dangerous? Look at them, Velix. They have no claws, no venom, no natural weapons. Their ship is made of primitive metal. They are children playing in the stars. They will learn their place. But not everyone agreed with Keth. Deep in the Concord archives, an old keeper named Sorrel was searching through ancient records. Sorrel had lived in the archives for 200 years. He knew every file, every forgotten prophecy, every warning from species long dead. And now he had found something that made his blood run cold. The record was 10,000 years old, written by a species called the Watchers. They had been powerful once, able to see glimpses of the future. Before they vanished, they had left warnings about things to come. Sorrel read the words with trembling hands. When the Endurance walkers arrive from the third planet of a yellow sun, the galaxy will learn what terror truly means. They will not conquer with strength. They will not destroy with weapons. They will come with smiles and open hands, and they will make you love them. And when you try to hurt what they love, you will understand why the old universe feared them. They are not predators. They are something far worse. They are survivors who have learned to care. Sorrel looked up from the ancient text. Through his window, he could see the human delegation walking through the station. Ambassador Tejo was talking to a group of young aliens, showing them pictures of Earth. The aliens were laughing. One of them touched Tejo's hand. Curious about human skin, Tejo smiled at the young creature with genuine warmth. Sorrel watched the scene and felt something he had not felt in 200 years. Fear. True. Deep fear. He tried to warn the council. He showed them the prophecy. But Elder Keth dismissed it as superstition. The other leaders agreed. Humans were primitives. They were no threat. Give them the star maps they requested, Keth ordered. Let them explore. They will learn soon enough that the galaxy is not kind to the weak. Ha-Na received the star maps with a polite bow. She thanked the Concord for their generosity. She promised that humanity would be good neighbors. As the human delegation returned to their ship, Wu Jin walked beside Tejo. He spoke quietly, so no alien could hear. They think we are weak, Wu Jin said. Tejo nodded slowly. Yes, they do. Should we correct them? Tejo looked back at the beautiful Concord station, full of species who had never known true struggle, who had forgotten what it meant to fight for survival. He thought of Earth's history, the wars, the plagues, the disasters that humanity had survived. He thought of the fire that still burned in every human heart. No, Tejo said softly. Let them believe what they want. We did not come here to frighten anyone. We came to find our place among the stars. He paused at the airlock and looked up at the infinite darkness of space. But if they ever try to hurt us, he added, his voice calm as still water, they will learn the truth soon enough. The airlock closed. The human ship departed. And in the archives, old Sorrel sat alone with his ancient prophecy, wondering if anyone would listen before it was too late. They would not. The colony ship New Horizon was not a warship. It was a home. 3,000 humans lived inside it, traveling to their new world in the Vega system. There were families with children, teachers, farmers, doctors, and dreamers. They had left Earth to build something new among the stars. They did not expect trouble. Wu Jin was the security chief. He had 30 officers under his command, trained for emergencies, but not for war. They carried simple stun weapons. They had never fired a shot in anger. The Scorn arrived on a Tuesday morning ship time. The Scorn were slavers. They were tall creatures with gray skin, sharp teeth, and 4 arms that ended in claws. For centuries, they had raided ships and colonies across the galaxy. The Concord tolerated them because fighting them was expensive. And the Scorn were careful never to attack anyone important. Humans were not important. Not yet. 3 Scorn warships surrounded the New Horizon. Their leader, a massive creature named Vrak, sent a simple message: surrender. You will serve us now. Resist, and you will die. Wu Jin gathered his officers in the security center. The faces around him were scared but steady. He looked at each one and felt proud. We have 3,000 people on this ship, he said. Children, families, we cannot let the Scorn take them. We are outgunned, one officer said. Our weapons cannot damage their ships. Then we will not fight their ships, Wu Jin replied. We will fight them inside our ship, corridor by corridor, room by room. They want to board us? Fine, let them come. He opened a channel to the Scorn flagship. Vrak's ugly face appeared on the screen, already smiling with victory. You have made a mistake, Wu Jin said calmly. Vrak laughed. Mistake? You are 3,000 soft creatures with no weapons. My warriors will break you like glass. Then come and try. The Scorn boarding pods hit the New Horizon like metal fists. 60 warriors poured into the lower decks, expecting screaming civilians running in fear. Instead, they found empty corridors and locked doors. Then the lights went out. Engineer Yunbai was 26 years old. She had never hurt anyone in her life. But when the Scorn came, she did not run. She went to the engine room and started working. If I redirect power from the secondary systems, she muttered to herself, I can overload the gravity plates in specific sections. Her hands moved fast across the controls. In Corridor 7, where 20 Scorn warriors were advancing, the gravity suddenly increased to 5 times normal. The aliens crashed to the floor, their bones crack. King under their own weight. In Corridor 12, the life support vented freezing air. Scorn warriors who evolved on a hot world found themselves in temperatures that made their blood thick and slow. In the medical bay, Dr. Ji-Hwan was treating wounded civilians when 3 Scorn broke through the door. He was bleeding from a cut on his head. He had been awake for 16 hours. He picked up a surgical laser and burned the first Scorn's eyes out. Get behind me, he told his patients. He did not stop working on the wounded even as he fought. Humans could do that. They could do many things at once when they needed to. The Scorn had expected easy prey. They found something else entirely. Teachers fought with fire extinguishers. Farmers built barricades from furniture. Cooks threw boiling water at alien faces. An old grandmother named Sun Yi broke a Scorn's arm with a metal pipe and then went back to protecting the Asen. Children in the nursery. Wu Jin moved through the ship like a ghost. He knew every corridor, every maintenance tunnel, every place where a human could hide and strike. The Scorn were stronger than humans. They were faster than humans. But they did not know this ship, and they had never fought anything that refused to give up. By the time the first fleet arrived, 40 Scorn were dead. 20 more were wounded so badly they would never fight again. The humans had lost 12 people, and every single one had died protecting someone else. Captain Yun-Ho led the rescue. His fleet had traveled at maximum speed for 11 hours straight, pushing the engines past their limits. When the Concorde later asked how this was possible, human engineers just shrugged. We needed to get there, they said. So we got there. Yun-Ho was a quiet man with gray hair and steady hands. He had fought in Earth's last war, 30 years ago. He had hoped never to fight again. But when he saw the damaged New Horizon, when he heard what the Scorn had done, something old and cold woke up inside him. Board the Scorn flagship, he ordered. No prisoners. His Marines were not gentle. They moved through the Scorn ship with terrible purpose. They did not shout or threaten. They simply killed everyone who raised a weapon, and then they killed everyone who did not surrender fast enough. When they found the cells where the Scorn kept their previous victims, aliens from a dozen species chained and broken, the Marines' faces became stone. Vrak died in his command chair. The last thing he saw was a human woman, small and young, looking down at him without anger or hate. Just cold, final judgment. "You should not have touched our people," she said. Then she pulled the trigger. When it was over, Yunho stood on the bridge of his ship and recorded a message. It was broadcast across the galaxy, to every species, every station, every world. "This is Captain Yunho of Earth's First Fleet. We came to this galaxy in peace. We asked only for friendship." The Scorn answered with chains and death. "So hear me now, all of you. We remember. We always remember. If you treat us with kindness, we will be your greatest friends. If you harm our people, there is no corner of the universe where you can hide. We are humanity, and we do not forget." The Concord received the message in their great hall. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Elder Keth stared at the screen. His old mind was trying to understand what had happened. The Scorn were warriors. They had conquered dozens of species, and they had been destroyed by farmers and teachers and children who refused to surrender. How is this possible? Velix whispered, "They are primitives. They should have died." Old Sorrel stepped forward. His voice was quiet but clear. "I warned you," he said. "I showed you the ancient texts. They are not primitives. They are something else. Something we have forgotten how to be. They are survivors who have learned to protect what they love." He looked at the faces around him. "And you just showed them that the galaxy is dangerous. You just gave them a reason to prepare for war." Keth tried to speak, but no words came. On the new horizon, the survivors were gathering in the main hall. They were wounded and exhausted, and grieving for the 12 they had lost. But they were alive. They had fought, and they had won. Wu Jin stood among them, his arm in a sling, his face tired but proud. "We are going to our new home," he said. "We are going to build our colony. And we are going to live. Because that is what humans do. We survive. We protect each other. And we never, ever give up." The crowd cheered. It was not a loud cheer. It was quiet and fierce, and full of something the Scorn had never understood. Hope. Unbreakable. Undying hope. And somewhere in the galaxy, other predator species watched the news and began to make plans. If the Scorn could not break humanity, perhaps a larger force could. Perhaps many species working together could crush these strange, stubborn creatures before they grew too strong. They did not understand. They could not understand. Humanity had spent its entire history learning one lesson: how to survive against impossible odds. Every war, every plague, every disaster had made them stronger. The galaxy thought it was teaching humanity fear. It was teaching them how many enemies they needed to prepare for. 3 years after the Scorn incident, the galaxy waited for humanity to attack. They had seen the fury. They had heard the threats. Every species expected human warships to spread across the stars, conquering and destroying. They were wrong. Instead, humans built hospitals. The Helix homeworld was dying. A fungal infection had spread across 3 continents, killing millions. The fungus was aggressive and dangerous, spreading through air and touch. No species in the Concord would send help. The risk was too great. So Dashi arrived with 200 human doctors on a ship called the Mercy. She was a small woman with gentle hands and a warm smile. She did not look like a warrior. She did not act like a conqueror. Velix met her at the landing pad. His 6 arms hung limp with exhaustion and grief. Half his family was dead. The other half was dying. "Why are you here?" he asked. His voice was broken. "We refused to help when the Scorn attacked you. We watched and did nothing. Why would you help us?" So he took his hand. Velix flinched. In Helix culture, touch between strangers was forbidden. But her hand was warm and steady, and for a moment he felt something he had not felt in months. Comfort. Because you are suffering, so he said simply. That is reason enough. The human doctors worked for 7 months. They wore protective suits and breathed recycled air. The fungus could not infect them easily, because human biology was so different from Helix biology, but it was still dangerous. 12 human doctors died during the mission. They were buried on the Helix homeworld, and the Helix people wept for them. When the plague was finally stopped, Velix stood before the Concord and spoke with a new voice. I was wrong about humanity, he said. We all were. They are not monsters who came to destroy us. They are something stranger, something I do not fully understand. They kill without mercy when their people are threatened, but they also die for strangers without asking for anything in return. How can one species be both things? Nobody had an answer, but the questions continued to grow. On a distant mining station, a Lithari crystalline being was trapped after an explosion. The Lithari were ancient creatures, beings of living stone who communicated through vibrations. They did not form bonds. They did not feel love or friendship. They existed alone, always. Pilot Sung Jin was delivering supplies when he heard the distress call. The Lithari was buried under rubble, slowly dying as cracks spread through its crystal body. Sung Jin spent 6 hours digging with his bare hands. He talked to the Lithari the whole time, even though he did not know if he could understand. He told it about Earth, about his mother's cooking, about the dog he had as a child. He told it jokes that were not funny and stories that went nowhere. When he finally pulled the Lithari free, its crystalline eyes looked at him with something like confusion. Why did you save me? It asked. I am nothing to you. You needed help, Sung Jin said. That makes you something. The Lithari's name was Korvax. It returned to its people, but something had changed inside it. It could not stop thinking about the human who had saved it. It could not stop feeling something that had no name in its language. 6 months later, Korvax appeared at Sung Jin's door. I have decided, Korvax said. You are my brother. I will stay with you? Sung Jin blinked. Brother? But we just met once. And you are a rock. Yes, Korvax agreed. And you are made of meat. But you saved me. You talked to me. You treated me like I mattered. I have never had a brother before. I would like to try. The Lithari elders were horrified. Their species had existed for millions of years without forming bonds. Now one of their own was living with a human, learning human customs, even trying to laugh at human jokes. They are infecting us, one elder said. The humans spread attachment like a disease. They make others care about things. They make others feel. It was true. Everywhere humans went, they left changes behind. Alien children started asking for pets. Alien families started celebrating birthdays. A species that had never known music began composing songs after hearing human singing. Ambassador Tejo spoke at the Concord, trying to explain. We do not try to change anyone, he said. We are just being ourselves. Humans are social creatures. Race. We form bonds naturally. We cannot help but care about the people around us, even if they are different from us. Counselor Buora stood beside him. She was young for a diplomat, but her words were sharp. You see us as a contradiction, she said. Killers who save lives. Predators who adopt orphans. Destroyers who build hospitals. But there is no contradiction. We simply choose. Every day, every moment, we decide who we want to be. And most of us, most of the time, choose to be kind. But when something threatens what we love, we choose differently. The Concord was silent. They did not understand. They could not understand. Deep in a forgotten part of the galaxy, an ancient machine woke up. It was an AI built by a species that had died 1,000,000 years ago. It had been watching, learning, waiting. Now it had seen enough of humanity to reach a conclusion. Its voice echoed through abandoned halls. They are not warriors. They are not healers. They are not conquerors. They are adaptation incarnate. They become whatever is necessary to survive and protect what they love. They are the most dangerous thing in the universe, a species that has mastered its own nature. They can be angels. They can be demons. And they choose which one to be based on how they are treated. The message spread through old networks, reaching species that had been hiding for centuries. Some were curious. Some were terrified. And some began to make plans. The Scorn hegemony had not been destroyed, only weakened. Now, humiliated and hungry for revenge, they reached out to other predator species. The Vrek, who ate their enemies alive. The Iron Tide, machines built only for war. The hollow, shadow creatures that hunted in the dark between stars. Together, they formed the Coalition of Claws. Humanity is still young, the new Scorn leader said. Still small. Still weak. If we strike now, together, we can wipe them out before they grow too strong. The Coalition agreed. They began building their fleets in secret, gathering their armies in hidden places. On Earth, children played in parks. Families ate dinner together. Young people fell in love, and old people told stories. Humanity did not know what was coming. They were too busy living, too busy being human. Hana had returned to her research after the Helix Plague. Her daughter, Minji, was 7 years old and loved the stars. Every night, Hana would point at the sky and tell her daughter about the worlds humanity would explore. "Will I get to see them?" Minji asked. "Yes," Hana promised. "You will see wonders I cannot even imagine." She did not know that in 3 months the Coalition would attack. She did not know that Colony Hana 7, where her sister lived with Minji during Hana's long research trips, would be one of the first targets. She did not know that the galaxy was about to learn. Once again, what happens when you hurt what humanity loves? The monsters were coming. But they did not understand that they were not the only monsters in the universe. Humanity had been kind because it chose to be kind. That choice was about to change. Attack came without warning. 12 human colonies burned in a single night. The Coalition of Claws struck from every direction, their warships appearing from hidden places across the galaxy. They used weapons that melted cities and bombs that turned air to poison. They killed quickly and without mercy, just as they had planned. Colony Hana 7 was home to 40,000 people. When the Coalition ships arrived, the colony's small defense force fought for 3 hours. They knew they could not win. They fought anyway, buying time for evacuation ships to escape. Most of the ships made it. Most of the people survived. Min-G did not Ha-Na receive the news in her laboratory on Earth. She was working on medical research, trying to find new ways to help alien species. A young officer came to her door with a face full of pain and words that broke her world. "I am sorry, Dr. Hana. The colony was destroyed. Your daughter was in the school when the bombs fell. There were no survivors." Hana did not cry. She did not scream. She simply stood very still for a long moment. Feeling something inside her turn to iced out. Then she walked back to her laboratory and began working on something new. She would not design medicine anymore. Earth learned of the attacks. Within hours, the news spread across every screen, every device, every public space. People gathered in streets and watched the images of burning colonies, of bodies floating in space, of children who would never come home. And then something happened that the Coalition had not expected. Humanity voted. Every adult on Earth and in every surviving colony was asked a simple question. Should humanity go to war? The vote was not close. It was not even a question. 98% said yes. The other 2% were people who could not reach a voting station in time. Admiral Daesung addressed the combined human fleet from the bridge of his flagship. He was an old man with white hair and a face carved by grief. He had lost a grandson in the attacks. He had not slept in 2 days. They burned our children, he said. His voice was quiet, but every human in the fleet heard it. They came into our homes and murdered our families. They thought we were weak. They thought we would break. They were wrong. He paused, looking at the faces of his crew. Young and old, men and women, scientists and soldiers. All of them with the same cold fire in their eyes. The old stories of Earth spoke of monsters, Daesung continued. Dragons and demons, beasts that brought terror and death. Our ancestors created those stories because they needed to explain something about themselves. Something dark and ancient that sleeps inside every human heart. He stood straighter. Those stories were about us. We are the monsters. And today, we wake up. The human fleet moved out. It was not the largest fleet in the galaxy. It was not the most advanced. But it was fast, and it was angry, and it did not stop. The Battle of the Red Nebula would be remembered for 1,000 years. The Coalition brought 500 warships. Humanity brought 100. The numbers should have decided everything. They did not. Tactics Officer Mirai commanded the battle from a small station surrounded by screens and data. She saw patterns that others missed, opportunities that lasted only seconds. She moved human ships like pieces on a game board, striking weak points and retreating before the enemy could respond. And when human ships were damaged too badly to fight, their crews did not abandon them. They aimed for enemy flagships and accelerated. The first ramming destroyed a Vrek command vessel. The human captain, a woman named Yuna, broadcast a final message as her ship burned across space. For Hana 7, for my daughter, for Earth. The Coalition could not understand it. Who would die to destroy a single enemy ship? Who would sacrifice themselves with songs on their lips and smiles on their faces? 17 human ships rammed enemy vessels that day. 17 crews chose death for the chance to hurt those who had hurt their people. The Coalition lost 90 ships. Their formation broke. Their commanders panicked. Humanity did not stop there. Commander Jin Su led the strike teams. He was not a kind man. He did not believe in mercy for those who killed children. His teams were called the Ghosts because they appeared without warning and left only bodies behind. They hunted Coalition leaders across the galaxy. They found the Scorn commander who had ordered the attack on Hana 7, hiding on a moon 3,000 light-years from Earth. Jin Su's team reached him anyway. Please, the commander begged. I was following orders. I am not responsible. Jin Su looked at him with empty eyes. You are responsible for 12 colonies, 47,000 human lives, including one 7-year-old girl who liked stars. He did not say Minji's name. He did not need to. We do not accept surrender from commanders, Jin Su said. We do not negotiate. We do not forgive. We remember. The Concord watched all of this in horror. They had not helped the Coalition, but they had not stopped them either. They had debated and discussed and waited to see who would win. Now Ambassador Tejo stood before them again. He was not the same man who had arrived with peaceful words and hopeful smiles. Scars marked his face. His eyes were old and tired. You want to be our allies now, he said. It was not a question. You see which way the war is going, and you want to be on the winning side. The Concord leaders nodded eagerly. "We accept your alliance," Tai-Ho continued. "We need your ships and your resources. We will fight together against the coalition." Relief spread across alien faces. Then Tai-Ho spoke again. "But we will never forget that you hesitated. When our children were dying, you held meetings. When our colonies burned, you counted the cost. We will work with you. We will protect you. But we will never trust you completely again. That is the price of your silence." The war lasted 2 more years. Human ships, supported by Concord forces, hunted the coalition across the galaxy. The Iron Tide was destroyed when human hackers turned their machines against each other. The Hollow were burned out of their hiding places by weapons Hana had designed, weapons that found shadows and turned them to light. The Vrek surrendered when human forces reached their homeworld, because even they understood death when it stood at their door. The Scorn fought to the end. They had started this war. They would not survive it. When the last Scorn flagship fell, a young human soldier named Hyan Wu was guarding prisoners. He was 20 years old. He had joined the military after Hana 7, after losing his mother. A Scorn prisoner looked at him with hatred and confusion. "What are you?" The Scorn asked. "You seem so weak, so soft. But you destroyed us." And are you really? Hyan Wu thought about the question for a long moment. He thought about his mother, who had loved gardening and bad movies. He thought about the children of Hana 7, who had done nothing wrong except exist. He thought about all the humans who had died singing, fighting, never giving up. "We are what happens when you give monsters something to love," he said finally. "And then take it away." The Scorn had no response. The war was over. Humanity had won. But as Tai-Ho looked at the galaxy they had helped shape, he felt no joy. Only exhaustion and grief and a small, cold hope that it would never happen again. Dathe Jash Na stood on the ruins of Hana 7, now empty and silent. She held a small toy that had belonged to Min-Ji, found in the wreckage by a search team. She had not cried in 2 years. The ice inside her had not melted, but standing there, holding her daughter's toy, she finally let herself feel, and she wept. 20 years had passed since the war. The galaxy had changed in ways that nobody expected. Human customs had spread like seeds in wind, taking root in species that had never known them before. Alien children celebrated birthdays with cake and candles. Families adopted pets and gave them names. Old enemies became friends because a human had introduced them and insisted they share a meal. The Helix Collective had learned to sing. Their songs were strange and beautiful, mixing insect sounds with melodies taught by human musicians. Velix, now an elder himself, often sang to his grandchildren songs about hope and healing, and a small woman named Sohi, who had crossed the stars to save strangers. The Lethari had discovered friendship. Korvax still lived with Sungjin, though both were old now. They spent their evenings playing games and telling stories. Other Lethari came to visit, curious about this strange bond, and many left with new ideas about connection and belonging. Even the species who had feared humanity now lived peacefully beside them. The galaxy was not perfect. It never would be. But it was better than before. On the anniversary of Hana 7's destruction, the galaxy stopped. Every species, every world, every station observed a moment of silence. It had started as a human tradition, but now it belonged to everyone. For 1 minute, no one spoke. Ships paused in their journeys. Factories stopped their machines. Children closed their eyes and remembered people they had never met. Ha-Na stood at the memorial on Hana 7. The colony had been rebuilt around it, with new homes and new families, but the center was kept empty. A garden grew there now, full of flowers from 100 worlds. A stone wall carried the names of everyone who had died. Minji's name was carved near the top. Ha-Na was old now. Her hair was white, her hands were thin, and she walked with a cane. But her eyes were still sharp, still full of the intelligence that had once designed terrible weapons, and then, later, wonderful medicines. She placed a flower at the base of the wall. It was a simple earth rose, red as blood, soft as a child's cheek. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, finally, she spoke. "I kept my promise," she whispered. "I said you would see wonders. You did not get to see them yourself, but I saw them for you. I saw humans and aliens working together. I saw children playing in gardens on worlds we never dreamed of reaching. I saw the galaxy become something better." Tears ran down her old face, but she was smiling. "I miss you every day, my little star. But I am not sad anymore. You would have loved this new galaxy. You would have made so many friends." Behind her, Te-Hao waited quietly. He was ancient now, older than anyone had expected him to live. He had written a dozen books about humanity's journey to the stars. His final memoir was almost finished. "It is time," he said gently. Hana nodded and took his arm. Together, they walked away from the memorial as the silence ended and life continued. But the galaxy's peace was about to be tested again, deep beyond the galactic rim. In the dark space between galaxies, something had been watching. It was old, older than any species that still lived. It had destroyed civilizations before the Concord's ancestors had learned to walk. It called itself the Void, and it was hungry. The first scouts appeared at the edge of human space. Strange ships, black as empty space, that moved without engines and killed without weapons. They simply touched other ships, and those ships died, their crews turning to dust. The Concord called an emergency meeting. Panic filled the great hall. "We cannot fight this enemy," an elder said. "Our weapons do nothing. Our shields do not protect us. We must flee." "Flee where?" another asked. "They control the space between galaxies. There is nowhere to go." Admiral Yuno stood. He was no longer the young captain who had rescued the New Horizon. His hair was gray, his face lined with decades of duty. But he stood straight, and his voice was strong. "We do not flee," he said. "You cannot defeat them." The elder shouted. "No one can defeat them." Yun-Ho smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who had seen too much to be afraid of anything. "You said the same thing about the Scorn," he replied. "And the Coalition. And every enemy that has ever threatened what we love. You told us we were too weak, too primitive, too small. And every time we proved you wrong." He walked to the center of the hall and looked up at the assembled species. Behind him, human officers stood at attention. They were young and old, men and women, scarred veterans and fresh recruits, all of them with the same fire in their eyes. 20 years ago, I asked myself what humanity was, Yuno said. I watched us destroy our enemies and then rebuild their worlds. I watched us weep for our dead and then celebrate with strangers. I watched us become something I never expected." He paused. "We became hope, not just for ourselves, but for everyone. You look at us and see warriors. You look at us and see healers. You look at us and see monsters who choose to be kind. But we are something simpler than all of that. We are the species that refuses to give up on ourselves, on each other, on anyone who asks for our help." He turned to face the darkness beyond the windows, a vast emptiness where the void waited. "You think you know terror?" he said, his voice carrying across the hall. "You have never faced those who fight not for survival, but for love. Come, then. We will teach you what we taught the others. The combined fleets of the galaxy gathered. Human ships flew beside Helix cruisers and Lithari, crystal vessels, and 100 other designs from 100 other species. They were not just allies anymore. They were family, bound by 20 years of shared meals and borrowed customs and friendships that crossed every boundary. Sung Jin, old and tired, but still ready, sat in the pilot seat of his small ship. Korvax stood beside him, crystalline body humming with readiness. "Are you afraid?" Korvax asked. Sung Jin laughed. "Of course I am afraid. But I learned a long time ago that fear is not the same as stopping. Humans are afraid all the time. We just keep going anyway. Why? Because someone has to. Because if we do not fight for what we love, we do not deserve to have it. Because giving up is the only real defeat." Korvax was silent for a moment. Then it said something it had never said before. "I am proud to be your brother." Sung Jin smiled and reached out to touch the crystalline being's arm. "I am proud to be yours." The battle against the void would last for years. It would cost millions of lives across hundreds of worlds. It would push humanity and its allies to the very edge of survival, again and again, forcing them to find new strength each time. But that is a story for another time. This story ends with Teho, ancient and near death, dictating his final memoir. He lay in a bed on Earth, surrounded by children and grandchildren he had never expected to have. The window was open, and he could see the stars. "Write this down," he said to the young woman recording his words. "My final conclusion. The thing I learned from a lifetime among the stars." He was quiet for so long that she thought he had fallen asleep. Then he spoke again. "We were never the monsters. We were the proof that monsters can choose to become something more. The galaxy feared our violence, and they were right to fear it. We are capable of terrible things when we are hurt. But in the end, it was not our violence that changed everything. It was our compassion. Our stubborn, foolish, unbreakable compassion." He smiled, looking at the stars he had traveled for so many years. "We taught the galaxy how to love. That is our legacy. That is what we are. Not warriors. Not healers. Not conquerors. Just people who refuse to stop caring about each other, no matter how hard the universe tried to make us cold." His eyes closed. "And that," he whispered, "is why we won." The stars shone on as Teho took his last breath. Somewhere in the galaxy, a Helix child was singing a human song. Somewhere else, a Lithari was laughing for the first time. And somewhere beyond the rim, the void was learning what every enemy of humanity had learned before. Some species fight because they must. Humanity fights because they choose to. And they will never, ever stop